Right. Um, yeah, another Queen thing. False facts about Queen you always thought were true. Now, probably most of the Queenies already know all of these, but I probably don't. Um, but yeah, let's go.
Queen is remembered as a legend of rock for a reason. They're amazing, and they changed music forever. But there have been a lot of misconceptions about the band over the years. Here are some false Queen facts you may have thought were true. It's true that Freddie Mercury was an intensely private person, but he wasn't exactly closeted like many people assumed. According to the biography Somebody to Love, Mercury didn't go to gay bars in disguise. He went openly and was often seen in public wearing a t-shirt from a London gay club. He didn't lie when asked about his sexuality in interviews either. According to journalist Tim Tiemann, Mercury told New Musical Express as early as 1974 that he was, quote, as gay as a daffodil. According to the Daily Beast, Jim Hutton, who had a 7-year relationship with Mercury, summed it up like this: "We both thought our relationship and being gay was our business." Mercury had 4 extra teeth on top of his mouth, which is what caused the extreme overbite he's famous for. According to Ultimate Classic Rock, he was so self-conscious about his overbite that he would often cover his mouth when speaking, and yet he never had them fixed because he thought his teeth were the secret to his astonishing singing voice. Most experts believe, though, that Mercury had it wrong. A person's teeth don't really have much to do with his or her singing voice. He did, however, have other qualities that are unusual in a singer. According to Scroll In, he was likely a baritone, but he sang as a tenor with incredible control. He was able to access his false vocal cords, which most people don't use for speech or singing, and this gave his voice that famous Freddie growl. It's sometimes hard for us normal humans to imagine that the person we see on stage isn't the same person off stage, but in Mercury's case, there was a definite line between performer and performance. He knew exactly how to work a crowd, and he was just as famous for his strut as he was for his singing voice. So a lot of fans believe the larger-than-life person they saw on stage must have had an outsized ego. But most of the people who knew Mercury said his ego vanished when he was off stage. Former Queen roadie Peter Heinz told Louder that the arrogance and strut were just part of the act, saying, "People talk about Freddie and his ego, but his ego was not as big as people think. It was all persona. He could make fun of himself. He wasn't necessarily the prima donna that everybody thought he was." Queen's I Wanna Break Free video featured the entire band dressed in drag, and when it was released in 1984, Americans did a lot of gasping and pearl clutching. You'll often hear people say that the video was banned in the US, though Open Culture says there really isn't any historical evidence of a ban. The whole thing was intended to be a parody of a popular British soap opera called Coronation Street, so of course Americans didn't get it. Instead, they thought it had something to do with Mercury being gay, and from there concluded that it was his big coming out song. The truth is that the song had really nothing to do with Mercury, apart from the fact that he was the one singing it. It was actually bassist John Deacon who wrote the song, and he meant for it to be a comment on women's rights. Back in the 80s, there was this weird cult of playing music backward to see if you could hear something sinister, and then when you thought you did, declaring to have found evidence of a band's debauchery. Queen was not immune to this sort of scrutiny. One theory claimed that when played backward, the song Another One Bites the Dust says it's fun to smoke marijuana. But according to the Salt Lake Tribune, that's not true. Most backmasking, as it's known, is just the power of suggestion. In an experiment, subjects who listened to Another One Bites the Dust backward weren't able to pick out the so-called subliminal message until the researchers told them what they were supposed to be looking for. Busted. Queen's Live Aid performance is widely recognized as one of the greatest live performances of all time. Somehow, this seems to have led to a myth that the band had basically fallen apart until they showed up at Live Aid and reminded everyone how awesome they were. That's all wrong, though. It is true that Queen faced a bit of a decline in the early 80s. According to Classic Rock Review, their 1982 album Hot Space was an abysmal failure. After that, the band decided to go off and do their own projects for a bit. But by 1984, they were back again with the works. That album reached number 2 on the UK Albums Chart and spent 93 weeks there, so they were hardly has-beens when they arrived at Live Aid in 1985. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Queen is definitely, yeah, they definitely have that. They have the Beatles aura in England. As basically, yeah, just one of our. They are basically more royalty than our royal family. I'd say same with the Beatles, and yeah, they're like they're enormous. Like it's just like I said when I first started reacting with him, in England, there's no way to escape Queen. You've got less chance of escaping Queen than you have the Beatles. But yeah, yeah, no, I do know kind of more of the backstory of Live Aid, but they weren't as big as what they are now. I'd say now, like I say, they are gods almost. But yeah, I suppose that you don't really get that status without time. Time's the only thing that can make that. And if people still love your songs 20 years, 30 years, 40 years later, that's your true mark of a great band or great artist or anything, really. It is time. Time is the judge, not Rolling Stone magazine or Enemy or anything like that, not the papers. It's time. Good old father time. But yeah, that's the reaction. Sweet.